Welcome back to Rick and Elaine Discuss the Bible. I am here with my dear friend, Elaine Ray Clark. Good morning, Elaine.
Good morning, my good friend, Rick Welch, in there in North Carolina.
Yes, Western North
7 o'clock in the
Carolina.
morning.
It is 7 o'clock in the morning here, and we just came out of what they call an Arctic clipper, where it was incredibly cold. It felt
Wow.
like for us, 32 degrees is freezing. We were hovering around 8 degrees, so we were below freezing. It was really, really cold. Everything was
Wow.
just, yeah, so we had to dress warm but it's pretty out. It's just cold. Now
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
getting
Well,
back up.
the one good thing about that is that you can snuggle up to Holly.
Yes, I can. And that
There
is
you go.
something that only I get to do. Isn't that wonderful?
Exactly. So there's always the pot of gold at this rainbow, isn't there?
There is, yes, my wife and her golden hair.
God
So,
bless.
all right, so we got some comments from last week's episode when we were doing chapter one. So
Hmm.
this comes from Tony Driver. She said, "Great quote. Righteousness can't be known until tested, always for our good." She liked that
Absolutely.
quote. Mm-hmm.
100%. Thank
That,
you. That's brilliant and true.
yes.
And I
Yes, it
love the way
is.
that they're interacting with us.
Me
Lovely. And
too.
I hope they're here now.
Yes, good morning. I don't do this live. I release it a week late. So thanks for watching next week, everybody. This comes from Tracy Ferguson. He reached out to me via phone. I actually spoke to him over the phone. He's up in Washington State, or Oregon. I can't remember. Sorry, Tracy. I can't remember which one. He says, "God bless you, Rick and Elaine. Thank you for the quote, meat and potatoes. Lots to chew on. Have a great week."
Oh, bless. Isn't that lovely? Thank you, Tracy. That's
Yes, thank you,
amazing.
Tracy.
God bless you. Oh, come
Yeah,
again. Literally, come
absolutely.
again.
Yeah.
Be here.
And then Pastor Alan Thompson, he wrote, "Rick and Elaine, the bar was set high on the first episode, yet you both cleared it with ease in this second episode. I love you both and thankful to God for you and the work you are doing. So much
Yes.
could be said. So much could be said, but let me at least say that the sword drill, our little Bible drill, concerning the use of the Satan used elsewhere in the Old Testament is Bible study gold. Thanks for taking the time to develop that. Being a white belt in this preterist dojo and learning
Oh,
to navigate this new world that I believe we are living in, where
yeah.
Satan has been judged and is no longer an enemy to be feared, would you say that the events in Job's life, and in parentheses he said, weather and the evil desires of men,
Hmm.
had the malicious intent of Satan behind it, whereas now weather does what weather does and has always done. Evil men continue to be evil like they have always been, and that it's not Satan who has us in his sights. Seems like some want to find the devil behind every bush." And then he says, "Elaine, in this episode, I learned that you are in Spain. I know it's a large place and this is a shot in the dark, but would you be familiar with the Evangelical Christian Academy in Madrid, Spain?"
I'm sorry, Tracy. No,
Nope, this
I'm
was
not.
Alan. This was
Oh,
Pastor
Alan.
Alan.
Sorry, Alan. No, I'm not Alan. No, I'm about 5 hours drive, 2.5 hours by bullet train.
Yeah. So he says, "A former teacher and mentor of mine now teaches math there at that academy. He was just curious. God bless you both and love you." So
And
thank
bless
you,
you.
Alan.
Yeah, I think again he's made a good point there that people do it, and it's almost like that when you say, well, actually Satan is no longer, he's just not around anymore. It's almost like they don't want him not to be. They want him to
Hmm.
be there all the time, sort of, jumping out on you every minute. And he seems to be everywhere at all times, even though he can't possibly be because he
Hmm.
hasn't been given that privilege or honor. So therefore, you just think to yourself, it's man themselves. This is the whole thing. And I do think as well, when you've got the elites of the world, those that are sort of hiding behind all the governments pulling strings, Bilderberg Group and all that kind of thing, um, they have things handed down to them. It's like what you mentioned and touched on it last week about the Magi. They came
Hmm.
from afar because we said that Daniel held the court and he was ruling over those that had the astrology. They
Hmm.
understood the star, not astrology today, like, Mystic Meg or something like that in a crystal ball. They were actually, it was astro, and they were just looking at the stars,
Right.
astrology.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of that,
Stargazers.
yeah,
Stargazers.
and I
That.
think a
Yeah.
lot of that information and that knowledge albeit bad, some of it has been handed down, passed down. Like Jesus said to the Pharisee, you want to do the work of your father.
Mhm.
And I think there are still secret societies out there that know these things that still want to do the work of their father. And anyone that's a Satan is an adversary.
Mhm. Exactly. Now, in regard to the weather, that has always baffled me too, Alan. And I'll say it this way. I was talking about Hurricane Helene and what it did to our area. And I said that that was not a surprise to God. If God is all knowing outside of space and time, that it's not a surprise. And so the question being, if Satan was still around, is he controlling the weather? And if he's not still around, then is God controlling the weather? So, great question. What people would say, let's forget about what people will say. Let's say what Rick will say. I think that God is in control of everything. I think everything stems from him, and weather patterns, things that happen that are appointed in time. He may have started that windstorm 2,000 years ago, and it just got here, at this, whatever, that God, his wisdom is above. So when I see meteorologists out there with their instruments measuring what's going on, they're measuring something that already had a cause. The cause comes from somewhere. And does the earth just do it on its own? I'm one of those guys that says no. I actually
I
believe
am.
that God is in control of everything, including the weather. Did I think that he was punishing us? No. Maybe he was somebody. Maybe he was, when I say punishing, maybe he's testing somebody. I certainly was tested in the midst of that storm. I had to elevate above what was my normal, natural way of life. We had to step out and to help people that did not have water, they didn't have heat. This was real life-threatening situations going on around us. And so to think, well, God just let the weather do whatever and none of this really matters. No, I don't think that. I think that God was fully aware of what was happening. There were people that lost their lives that day. There were people that were we were without power for 15 days. Several of
Wow.
my friends were without power for 18 and 19 days.
That's a
And it
long
was
time.
bitter cold.
Hmm.
I had a man drive up in my driveway. He couldn't get out any further because we were blocked in. And he asked if we had any water because he was having to get water in a little shallow bowl out of his hot
Wow.
water heater because that's the only water he had. And he said it's kind of rusty. And
Hmm.
fortunately for us, we had, a few stacks of bottled water. Could give him some. But yeah, I mean, I would like to say now I believe that God is in control of all things. Nothing takes him by surprise. I, I, and it has a meaning and a purpose in it. That's all I can
Yeah.
say.
But yeah, I totally agree with that. But I also do think that there's weather manipulation going on.
Hmm.
So for me, I see that there is also that. But then again, you still got to turn around and say it's the same thing going back sort of full circle to Job, isn't it? It wasn't God bringing it, but he was in his sovereignty allowing it.
Hmm.
And that is the thing, whether it brings about something that he wants, like you just said. I think it always invariably it has to bring about something that he wants.
Hmm.
Whether it be to, like you say, there are certain people out there that maybe need sort of something being brought to their attention. It's like we said again about Job, who's a righteous man, but then as the time went on, he started to question. So there was this little part of him that probably he didn't even know existed before the tribulation that was placed upon him. So
Hmm.
therefore, although it looked like a bad thing, ultimately it was for Job's good, and also the outcome was good for everybody who was righteous. Well, obviously to God,
Hmm.
but Satan was sent away with a flea in his ear because it didn't come out his way. So righteousness prevails, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Triumphs.
And yes, and you know, that's why I wanted to get into this book so much because I've had many people quote it to me and tell me what its meaning is. And just by digging in what we did in our introduction and in chapter one, it's challenging a lot of what I used to think.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea that this supernatural creature has the ability to walk to and fro on the earth, but also stand before the divine council and answer
Mm-hmm.
directly to Yahweh and speak to Yahweh. And,
And
you
isn't
know,
it strange? He's got this time period that he sticks to, that
mhm,
he allows all of this until the time period or the allotted time is up for when
mhm,
it all comes to sort of fruition and God puts down his gavel and that's its sentence is passed. But,
Yes.
all the evidence is gleaned throughout all the centuries, throughout all the people that have been on the earth. And then God makes his decision. And that's really what happened in 70,
Right. Yes. And do you have your complete Jewish Bible today?
Always,
Always. Wonderful. I think it
always.
would be a good time. Let's just, because of what you said about timing, I think this is a good, if you would, let's read chapter 2 and let's see how many verses we should read to start with. Let's go with verses 1
The six?
through
Six?
10. 1 through 10, I
One,
think.
two, three, 10. Wow. Right. Okay, then. Does anybody else out there want to get their Bible?
Yeah, get your Bible out. It's the
Exactly. Quick,
complete
go and
Jewish
get it.
Bible.
Exactly. Come back
Hmm.
and we'll go through it together. It
Yes.
says, another day came when the sons of God came to serve Adonai, and among them came the adversary to serve Adonai. And I just think that's interesting. It says, among them came the adversary to serve Adonai. Adonai asked the adversary, where are you coming from? And the adversary answered, from roaming through the earth, wandering here and there. Adonai asked the adversary, did you notice my servant Job, that there is no one like you on earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and shuns evil, and that he still holds on to his integrity, even though you provoked against me to destroy him for no reason? The adversary answered, skin for skin. A person will give up everything he has to save his life. But if you reach out your hand and touch his flesh and bone, without doubt he'll curse you to your face. Adonai said to the adversary, here, he is in your hands, except that you spare his life. Then the adversary went out from the presence of Adonai and struck Job down with a horrible infected sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. He took a piece of broken pot to scratch himself and sat down in the pile of ashes. His wife asked him, why do you still hold on to your integrity? Curse God and die. But he answered her, you're talking like a low-class woman. Are we to receive the good at God's hands but reject the bad? In all of this, Job did not say one sinful word.
Mm. So we should recognize right out of the gate, we don't know how much time has passed from chapter 1 to chapter 2.
No, because it just says another day.
Another day. So we don't know how long Job was in that state of mourning. You could think when he says it's another day, I mean, it could be 2 days, 3 days, 12 days, who knows? We don't know. But what we do know is that in the last chapter, Job was absolutely devastated, but he never said a sinful word. So when we get to this one, again, here we are, the throne room of God, the sons of God present themselves, and God initiates the conversation. He asks the Satan, where have you been? Again, this is the same question he asked him before. Where have you been? He already knows the answer. I always wondered why. We're to glean from this that this is the job of the accuser, that he is going around seeking. And Peter will later say that he's seeking those who he may devour, which is what this adversary is doing. He's going around and God immediately shows him, again, take a look at this one. Look at this guy, Job. And he says again, he's upright. He's a righteous man, blameless.
Blameless.
And even though you incited me to do everything that we've done against him, yet he still holds his integrity and has not said a single word against me.
Is it strange that it says that even though you provoked me against him to destroy him for no reason? I wonder what that sort of, is he sort of like when he's saying he provoked me, is he sort of saying that, yes, well, I will place my servant Job in your hands so that you can test him? Because it seems a funny thing to say, doesn't it? Because you provoked me. You probably think to yourself, send him off with a flea in his ear. Don't you know I'm sovereign? You know I am. You can't ask me. So you must know I am. So therefore, off your pop. It's this idea, this interaction, this conversation, these thought processes, this thinking that's in the heart of this adversary and in the heart of God. You're trying to understand where the reasoning's sort of coming from both of them, even though you know the situation and who's who, the adversary and God, sovereign God.
Do you want to know something else that's interesting to me? is that God said and replied to this Satan that the way he says it, you incited me against him to destroy him without reason.
Yes, absolutely.
In other
Exactly.
words, the things that Job was doing when he was offering up those sacrifices for his children,
Mm.
even that wasn't a reason to have
No,
this done to him.
no.
There, this Satan, his function, his role is to try to draw out people to get them to curse God. Like when
Mm.
you asked me last week about the serpent, I kept thinking about that. I kept
Mm.
thinking about what you said, and I thought, wait a minute, has that been his role all along?
Mm.
Was he designed to be the one that goes around inspecting like a quality control agent over humanity,
Mm.
saying this one is good and this one is not? Test this one.
Yeah, or is he there really to show the sovereignty, the righteousness, and the holiness of God?
It's almost as if, like I said last week, you won't know that you're righteous unless it's tested.
Mhm.
That's reality. What we're saying here is that how can you know unless? And there's this
Absolutely.
argument about good versus evil. How can you know good if you don't know evil,
And that's what I
right?
was saying about Job. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't know there was that portion of his heart until he
Yes.
went through this test.
Uh-huh.
So therefore, again, this is where you go through the fire. God tries you, doesn't it? And on all it smelts, and all the dross comes to the top. It's
Mm-hmm.
not very good. Like any trial that you go through, like it says there, is not joyous but grievous. But afterwards, and that's what I'm saying. It's this fruit that you gain from it afterwards. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Job knows where his children are. He got back more than he had. He had another 10 children. Not that you can replace the others, don't get me wrong. I understand that. But he knew where they were. He
Mm-hmm.
understood that one day that they would be called and that they would hear him. So uh, again, the very fact that he offered up these things, these burnt offerings for his children,
Mm-hmm.
showed you the depth of love that he had for them. And it's interesting, really, that Satan was given permission by God to do all these things. And it was almost like, right, but if you touch him, he's going to curse you. Not saying that, you do it all my family, if you like, but don't come near me. I'll let them go. But,
Mm-hmm.
then Satan says, well, no, touch him. And then, have a bash at him. So again, this little element of, will he sort of actually sort of cave in when it's his self that's going through it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I want to dig in deep on a thought that I've been having. Okay, I shared this at the Berean Bible Conference last year, but I want to dig in a little deeper here in this moment because it's coming to mind. When the serpent came to Eve,
Mhm.
the serpent used this really cunning, subtle type language with her. Can you eat of every tree? He already knew the answer. She
Mhm.
said, "Yeah, we can eat of every tree except this one that's in the middle of the garden. We can't
Mhm.
we can't eat it or touch it lest
Yeah.
we die." He said, "You will not surely die." But God knows that the moment that you eat it, you're going to become like him, knowing both good and evil,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then it says that Eve, when she saw that the tree was good for food,
Mhm.
it became desirable to her eyes because it would make one wise, right? So when we talk about sin, the sin, when Jesus comes on the scene, he really hones in on this point. It's what's happening on the inside of us
Mhm.
is where this is taking place. Okay. It's not going to be necessarily in your actions. It's your thinking. It's
That's what
how you
James says, isn't it?
say that again.
That's what James says, isn't it?
Yeah. If you'd like to look that up and read it, and I'll,
Yeah.
I'll continue. So she sees this and it becomes a delight to her eyes. And when I saw that, it seemed as if before it was not a delight to her eyes, that she was looking at that tree as a problem. Most likely Adam or God, whoever told her, do not for any reason go near that tree or touch it because you're gonna die when you do.
I think it's like anything, isn't it? You don't notice or you don't sort of hone in on something until someone suggests something. I mean, I've had it in my life before when I've just seen something all of my life, and then somebody might say, "Oh, have you seen that?" And you might go,
Mhm.
"Actually, I've never looked at it like that before." And all of
Yeah.
a sudden, something could become quite, and this is why God says, keep your mind clean, keep it sort of away from those things, be babes as to bad, because he
Hmm.
knows that, dwelling on these things, it is really not good for your mind.
No, it's not. And so, in the same way that once she ate of the fruit and her eyes were open, she gave to her husband and his eyes were open, and they saw that they were naked and had shame and all this. That they knew because God tells them, get them out of here because now they know. I'm not going to give them the access to the tree of life and live forever with this information because now they know both good and evil. But the reality is, what we're seeing here is that they know both good and evil apart from God. Now they're looking at it through their own morality, their own thinking.
But do they realize, though, as young children, that they are actually looking at it in a way that is bad? It's like a parent might have to say to a child several times, "Don't touch that, don't touch that, don't touch that," even with a tap on the hand or whatever. Did they understand, or was it desirous to them because they were being drawn out and dragged instead of? It's like a child, isn't it? You can either have a child that listens to the parent, doesn't quite get why, because
Hmm.
to them it's just like an example. You might say to your little children, when you go up the road, don't accept sweets from strangers.
Hmm.
Well, the
Right.
child will go, it's a sweetie. That's lovely. A sweetie's
Yeah.
nice.
Hmm.
But being an adult, you know what's behind it.
Yes. The
And it's the
malicious
same
intent.
thing.
That's right.
You want your children to sort of say, well, actually, mummy and daddy said I shouldn't accept sweets and follow through on that.
Hmm.
Whereas, Adam and Eve did not. I mean, Eve was sort of tempted by her own. I'll bring this out. I'll read it in James in a minute. And then probably Adam, in his sort of desire to have his woman there, because he said when she was brought to him, at last, this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh, indicating that there was some time that had elapsed before this woman was brought to him. So I'm wondering whether he, in his childlike mind, he's thinking to himself, oh, I don't want to lose her.
Exactly. I think
But
so.
yeah,
He, it was not good for him to be alone.
no,
Nothing that God had done had satisfied what was going to happen in Adam until this woman at last, and like you said,
absolutely.
and now he's got her. And then what? Now he's going to watch her go and be something and closer to God. And now he's going to be left in the cold without her again. Like,
Exactly.
what's happening here?
Exactly. And it's like someone with a sweet. Oh no, 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 no. It's a sweet, it's lovely, it's a strawberry one. No, mummy and daddy won't be mad about that. In fact, they'll the fact that you've got a lovely sweetie, they'll be happy for you.
Hmm.
Well, it's that kind of thing for me. I don't think that they were incredibly intellectual. I just think that they were like children.
Hmm.
They didn't know they were naked. Everything was fine. Everything was lovely. And I do believe that they were not tempted at all until the thought was put in their mind. They were quite like children, quite happy not to touch it. If you say to a child, don't touch that, nothing. And you say, don't touch that, there's sweeties in there. We don't,
Hmm.
I'm using sweeties because children, I mean,
Yeah,
they've
of
done
course. It
experiments, haven't
works.
they,
It
before,
works.
when they've
Yeah.
left children in a
Hmm.
room with sweeties, some of them will take them and some of them won't.
Right.
Um, but can I read that bit here?
Yeah, please do.
It says here, how blessed is the man who perseveres through temptation, for after he has passed the test, he will receive his crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. No one being tempted should say, I am being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted by evil, and God himself tempts no one. Rather, each person is being tempted whenever he is being dragged off and enticed by the bait of his own desire. Then, having conceived, the desire gives birth to sin, and when sin is fully grown, it gives birth to death. Don't delude yourselves, my dear brothers.
Hmm. That's good. Yes.
Yeah.
So in this case, though, here we are with Job.
Dragged
Okay.
off by the bait. Dragged off
Yeah.
by the bait.
So if we look at this from a good and evil perspective, let's look at it like this. Before Job, before anything happens to Job, Job is the wealthiest and most powerful man in the East. He's got all of this livestock. He's got a wife. He's got all of these children. He is an incredibly blessed man. And you would say, that is good. That's how we would look at it as people. Like, that's good, right?
Well, it's
You
almost like a setup, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, that's really, really good. That's very good, we might say. That's very good. But then we learn a little bit about Job. Job says, my kids are out there partying, living it up. perhaps in their thoughts, they're not considering my God. So therefore, I'm going to offer these sacrifices. So that's not really good. It's good that Job wants and loves his kids that way, but it's not good what his children are doing. Saying nothing of the wife at this point. We don't know. So then whenever God is in
It
his
doesn't even
throne
say
room.
really what their children are doing. It just says they're getting together to eat and drink with them.
That's right. And to me, I think eat, drink, and be merry, probably not thinking about God at all. That's why Job is considering lifting up these sacrifices on their behalf. I think he's thinking they're doing a little bit too much partying. They're probably not thinking of God, you know?
Mm.
That would be an assumption, but it certainly seems like that's what Job's thinking of. That's why he's offering the sacrifices in the first place.
I think he said just in case.
Yeah, of course. But that's all well and good. That's I'm a parent. I have just in casers all the time worrying
Yeah.
about my children. But in this case, by the time the Satan sits before God, and he tells him in that first chapter, like if you take away all of his possessions and all of this stuff, he's going to curse you because that is very good. This stuff is very good for him. So what you learn from Job in the first chapter is that how he measures good is God alone.
Mm-hmm.
God alone is good. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is the lesson in Genesis anyway, that God alone is good. You can't make judgment calls apart from him. If you walk with
But isn't
him,
it sad? You don't really understand that until things go wrong.
yeah, of course. And that seems to be, again, how can you know good unless you know evil? That's the idea, right? Well, Adam and Eve knew good before they knew evil, and if they'd have stuck with it, they would have stayed with it. But that's not what happened. So when you get to chapter 2 of Job,
So when you say no good and evil, I mean Jesus knew evil and good, but he didn't do evil, did he?
no,
But
he
he
did
knew it.
not.
So therefore, then
Yes.
do we know then by anything? Is knowing good and evil actually doing evil to know it, or is actually evil being presented to you? And by sticking with what you've been told from God, is that then knowing, well, something's come up that's counterfeit here? I'm going
Hmm.
to stick with the reality. So I've got two things there. I've got the reality of God, which is good, because he said to me, don't touch that tree. You'll positively die on the day you do. And then you got
Hmm.
somebody else going up saying, and then sort of like offering something else. So therefore, good and evil is before me already. And that's the whole thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
I wouldn't measure Christ against that because remember, Christ is the Son of the Father. Yes, he
yes,
knew it. Yes, he knew it. However, he only did the will of his Father. So that's
yes.
different from Adam. Adam did not do the will of the Father. Adam
But
did
that's
his
the whole
own
point.
will.
But
Hmm.
that's the whole point. I mean, again, it's like Jesus when he was in the garden. He said, Father, if this cup passed from me, but not my will, your will be done. We can all have ideas of what we'd like. But
Yes.
at the end of the day, even if you go against what you would like, it's a bit like, again, we've spoken about it before, the two sons.
Hmm.
Jesus gave the illustration. There were two sons. The father said, can you go off into the field and do one? And one said, oh, I'm not going to be bothered to do that. And then he
Hmm.
thought about it and he went and did it. And then he said to the other one, said, oh, yeah, of course I will immediately. And then he went away and thought about it, thought, no, I don't want to be doing that really. And
Hmm.
Jesus said, which one did the will of the Father? And he said, well, actually, the one who complained about it, but when I did, he said, go and do the same.
Right.
And I think that is the thing. It may be, there may be things out there that people are watching this and they're being tempted by stuff. But there's your
Hmm.
choice. There's your
Hmm.
choice. Are you going to allow what God has said to you? Because it's placed before you. This is good and this is evil. Placed before
Hmm.
you. God is good. This is evil. God has said to you, this is what I say to you. So for somebody else to place something before you, that is evil being placed before you. So
Hmm.
there's an opposition there. So
Right.
basically, good and evil is picking good.
Hmm.
That's it. You've got evil there because evil is in opposition to good, and God is good because I know that's what God is, and He's told me not to touch that tree. So therefore, I have before me placed good and evil. That is the choice I have. I don't necessarily have to go through evil to understand what good is. Otherwise, you're back to like Paul says, well, let's do more evil so that God's grace can abound.
Right. God forbid.
Well, absolutely. So I think for me, like it says there here, God doesn't tempt anybody. But it's going through your mind. You're starting to sort of think about something, and that in itself is the evil because you're then choosing to concentrate on something that God has said not to do. So you don't have to go through the evil to understand when evil is. It's like there might be a lovely woman or a lovely man that's making eyes at you and wants you and tries to entice you. I mean, that's all in Proverbs, isn't it? You know, there's this, the woman sits there and she plays her role and the man plays his role like a bull to the slaughter. You know, but you don't have to choose that, but you can see the bad. And
Yes.
this is the thing for me. I think to myself, in fact, I pray that I don't have. What does it say in the Lord's Prayer? You know, deliver me from temptation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I mean, you know, guard me from temptation, but deliver me from evil.
Yes.
And this is the thing, you know, by doing God's word, doing what he says, being obedient to, evil might present itself. So I see God's word and I see the evil that's presented. So I can see the two. But I choose good because I don't have to pick the evil.
No, you're right. And you are literally describing what is happening on the internal mind of Job. Because after chapter 1, now in chapter 2, he gets it from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. And as he's sitting there with broken pottery, scraping himself, because there's no medical help for this man at this point where he's at, who knows? But it's his wife that comes up to him and says, "Do you still hold fast your integrity?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, just think about that question. And I think that Job's wife gets a raw deal a lot of times in Christian talk. Let's not forget that she lost everything and that her children were killed and that she's watching her husband suffer. She's had enough. And she's saying, "Are you still going to say God is good?"
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If you went all through this, would you want Holly to say to you, "Oh, curse God and die, Rick. What's the matter with you, man? You've lost all." No, what would you want her to do? You want her to come and comfort you, wouldn't you?
I would want her to not eat the fruit off that tree and hand it to me. I would
No,
want
I'm
her
talking about
No,
Job
I
here.
know. No, I know. I am. I'm with you. I'm saying, and much like Eve, I would rather that she didn't eat of the fruit and give it to me and listen to other people. I would rather that she didn't look at me and say, "Curse God and die." 100%. I'm with you on that. And it's in this story though, she's obviously very weakened by everything that's happening. And she just looks at him and says, really, it's like, are you still going to say that God is good? Are you still going to say that he's worthy of your praise and your worship? Is that really what you're going to say? How many people have ever looked at you when you're in a terrible situation and you say, "But I still trust God. I still believe that God is good." And they look at you like you're insane, like you have green teeth. And it's like, you don't know my Father. You don't understand my Father. You don't understand my relationship that I have by the Spirit with him. If you could only understand that. And that's my sister-in-law who lost her child, and people are like looking at her and really watching her responses. And she got to the point where she was like, one day she's throwing her phone and wants nothing to do with anything. And then the next day she says, "The Spirit of God has come upon me so much that I can even thank him in my hardship.
Yeah.
Even in my suffering, I still love him and thank him."
Absolutely.
That is something that is so rare in this world. And I remember the Hebrew writer when he talks about all of those men and women who suffered, and he said that the world's not even worthy of them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is what kind of man that Job is. The world is not worthy of a kind of man like Job. That's why he's going to be remembered through history, because he was unique.
He was, and yet it's strange, really, that his wife's not really mentioned in all of the scenario, is it? I mean, all we know is at the end he has 10 more children, so he must still be with her, and things must be okay. You know, but
I think she's there the whole time, suffering in silence with him, except for this one moment when she speaks and says, "Enough is enough. I am in torture, and so are you. You've obviously been cursed. You should curse."
Yeah.
But that's not what Job does.
And isn't it strange? Is that really the husband then covering his wife?
I would say that he is elevating himself, and she's going to be sanctified by him and his actions and what he's doing.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think that if Adam had said in the garden to his wife, "Why have you done this? Don't you realize what God has said?" and called out to God and said, "This woman has done this," I think that there would have been some kind of pardon on the part of God, because the man would have done what he should have done, because Jesus pleads for the bride and has pleaded for the bride and intercessed for the bride. So it's the same thing, that if he had intercessed for his wife, maybe the whole thing would have been done and dusted there.
Right. Yeah. Perhaps if he would have died for his wife.
Absolutely.
instead of sitting there and engaging in what she's doing.
Exactly. Because he's selfish, because he thinks, oh, I don't want to lose her. She's just turned up.
Hmm. That's right.
It just
So,
shows you really how what you think and what God thinks are two totally different things. Like he says, we don't know the beginning to the end. And
right.
if he had done that, looking at what we have now, what we've seen came from that sort of encounter and that decision for the pair of them.
Hmm.
They may have sort of thought to themselves, well, actually, knowing what I do now, all I had to do was stand up and say, like Christ, intercede, be there, cover, speak up. It could have been so different.
Yeah,
Could have been so different.
absolutely it could have. And now I want to move on just really quick. I want you to think, let's talk a little bit about what Job's answer was to what his wife asked. She said, "Do you still hold fast your integrity, curse God and die?" And his response, you said as a low class woman. My
Yeah,
my version says you speak as one of the foolish women would
yeah,
speak.
yeah.
So he's looking right at her and saying, "You're not acting. You're not up here with me the way in which we're thinking.
Mind, it's a low class of thought.
That's right. It's foolish thinking on your part." And
Mhm.
then he says the most remarkable thing, and it's something that we should all like. If you want to quote Job, everybody quote this: "Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil?"
That's right.
Now,
Receive the.
we like when we teach our kids, we don't teach our kids like this. This is not how we teach our children as
Mhm,
parents, right? We don't
mhm.
do things evil to our kids so that they'll understand what good is. We're always trying to show them what is good, and then to stay away. Don't touch that. Do not touch. Do not touch. Do not touch, which
Mhm.
is exactly what the law does, right? Do not taste. Do not touch. Stay away. That's good. That's good.
Mhm.
But what Job is saying is that yes, even from him, things will come to us that is hard. Yet he
And
is
he
still
lets.
my God, and he is still good. He is still inherently good.
Exactly.
And that's not a false hope. That's a real hope. That's
Yeah.
something that you can say. Not for us as believers, we say that nothing can separate us from the love of God. Yet some of the things that you're going through certainly feels like you're being severed from him. That's how it feels. Like, why, where are you? Sometimes people say, I've been praying and I feel like it's touching a brass ceiling and never gets to him. I've heard people say these things. And I'm like, no, that's not actually what's going. Your prayers are getting through. It's just your answers aren't what you want. That brass ceiling that you're feeling is you. It's your answer that you're looking for that's not being given.
So
You
yeah, but
understand
then
what I
again,
mean?
there's the problem, isn't it? So the problem is being showed to them by the fact that they don't think their prayers are getting through, and there's a brass ceiling.
Hmm.
And why isn't God listening? Well,
Hmm.
that is the thing that you're going through to understand that I am listening, and you need
Yes.
to get to that point where no matter what's happening, I am always there by your side. It's a bit like at the end of the day, it's like King David with all that he'd done. Like we said, he said, God said, "You're a man after my own heart." Slept with Bathsheba. Put Uriah up in the front line. Everybody sort of like go back and let him get killed. But the thing is, God doesn't alter the consequences of actions.
Hmm.
What he does is then, now we have consequences from Adam and Eve. We have consequences all the time. The whole world now has got
Hmm.
the sinful tendency within. Even Christians have still got that when we got Christ's righteousness. And you just think to yourself, I've lost my thought, Rick.
I'm sorry.
I've lost my
Yeah.
thought. What was I saying?
Well, you were.
No, no.
I was following your lead, so I'm not sure where you were
Anybody
heading
out
with
there
that.
remember what I was saying?
Welcome to our club. I do this all the time. Yeah, I
Yeah,
do
well,
this all the
yeah.
time.
I mean, yeah. I forgot what I was saying now. Anyway, we'll crack on. There
Well,
was a thought. There was a thought behind it.
maybe it'll come back to you when I say this. Listen closely, listeners. When people say, why do good things happen to bad people and why do bad things happen to good people and all that, you know what that means? You actually don't know the God of this Bible. You're not going to know him unless you know these things that Job is telling you right now. He's telling his wife, shall we receive only good and not receive evil? Is that who our God is? Do we know? The reality is that God is not a Santa Claus up in the sky. It's Christmas time. He's not a Santa Claus up in the sky, everybody.
Doesn't
He
work
is
like that.
he's a sovereign being, and all things work together for the good of those who love God
That's
and are
right.
called according to his purpose.
That's right.
So even the evil things that come upon us, we're very aware that it's
Hmm.
for our good because we are called according to his purpose. Until you know that, you're not going to know our Heavenly Father. It's the only way you're going to know him is to understand that part of his character.
And that's it. You want to know what good and evil is? Well, I tell you what, you're going to go through it, but I'm going to be there to support you. And that's what I was
Hmm.
saying. That's it. When with David, at the end of the day, David had to live with consequences, and I think that we live with the consequences of our first parents falling. But God says that I don't ever send trials or tribulations upon you. They come, I allow them. I'm sovereign. They're for your good. You're learning something through them. And all the way through them, I will be your comfort. I will be your rock. I will support you. You will get through if you just
Hmm.
trust and believe. And that's what it's about, really.
Yes,
He's
it
not going
is.
to wave a wand, is he, and say, take all our problems away. It doesn't work like that. I mean,
No.
we've got ourselves into this mess because of our first parents. But the Spirit
Yes.
of God within us now, that lives within us, that moves within us, that's changing us to the image of Christ. This is He who is giving us this ability to understand all these things that we're talking about. That again, we go back to what Peter said. They're out there, they're suffering, but they're suffering to die.
Hmm.
We might be suffering, but we're suffering to live. We're suffering for good things, for righteous things. Even if someone's slapping your face, turn the other side. You know,
Yes.
this is the beauty of God. I mean, it looks in theory to be totally and utterly opposite of everything that anybody would do. But in reality, when you think about it and think about the spirit that you're showing and displaying to mankind, it truly is God radiating out of you.
Yes. And I'm so glad that you found your thought and you plucked it out of the air. You got back to your thought
It was
that
all
you'd
the people
lost.
that were saying, "Oh Lord, give her a thought, give her a
Yes,
thought."
thank you so much.
Absolutely,
The ones that prayed. You came back to our last week and fixed us. That's how God's
exactly.
outside of time. Let me tell you, this is just a side note that's funny. A lot of times I'll have that happen to me too, where I'll lose a word or a thought, and I'll be so focused on what that is. And I remember one day I was standing in my kitchen, and some stuff had spilled all over the floor. Some cereal had spilled all over the floor, and I looked at my daughter and I said, "Would you please go get me the thing?"
Mop.
I said, the thing, the sweeper. And she was like, the sweeper? And I was like, this is my daughter. She's being a smart aleck. And I was like, the thing that you sweep with. And she was like, oh, you don't know the word. I'm not bringing it till you give me the word. And I'm like, seriously, bring me the sweep thing, the sweeper. And then she
Broom.
wouldn't. Thank you. And when she said the word, she said, you mean broom? I felt so elated in my brain. I was like, oh, that's the word. That's what it feels like when I lose a thought and then I gain it.
Oh,
That
I
and it's
know.
so awful when you can't. So anyway.
And you know what? It's happening to more and more people.
Hmm.
Younger people as well are just forgetting things. They'll be in the middle of a sentence and it'll disappear. And I just think to myself, Lord, is there something in the water, something in the food, something in the air? Because
Yeah.
it's affecting the brain, definitely, without a doubt. There's things going on, Rick, that we're not privy to, that God allows.
Hmm.
He
He
lets.
does.
We don't know
So
what's going to come down the pike.
that's right. All right, so let's get this verse in. Listen to this. So he says, shall we receive good from God and shall we not receive evil? I love this part. I want you to see Jesus in this line. I'm going to show you. And all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Jesus said, it's not what you put into a man that
That's
defiles a man, it's what
right.
comes out that defiles the man.
That's
So
right.
Job on the inside, everywhere on the inside, even though his body is wrecked with pain and he's lost everything, including his children, down deep, the creamy nougat center of this
Absolutely.
man says, God is good, and whatever he gives me is good. This is how
Yeah.
it is.
Isn't it wonderful? That's
Yeah.
wonderful. I mean,
Job knew God. He knew him. Now he's going to want to ask
exactly.
him some questions, but he knows him.
Yeah, it's like that stick of rock, isn't it? You cut it in half, it will say, I belong to God.
Hmm.
I belong to Christ.
Hmm.
And that's it. This is what I always say to, my daughter, my family, my friends, make up in your mind before these things happen, because we don't know what's down the line. These things are happening in countries where they're asked to deny what they believe or die for what they believe. And that it's happening, India, Pakistan, you've got China, you've got
Mhm.
all sorts of countries where people are suffering for being a Christian. And, we've got it pretty easy in England and Europe and America. Is it, I
Mhm.
mean, but I mean, it could be coming to your door quite shortly.
Yes, at
We
any
just don't
moment.
know. And that's the thing. I think we really need to sort of say, well, if I was put in this situation, what would I do? Would
Mhm.
I curse God and die? Or would I, if I literally saw someone holding a gun to my grandchildren's head and they said, if you don't denounce Christ, I'm going to pull the trigger.
Mm.
It's that moment that really it's a bit like the virgins. They've gone off and run off because their oils, you haven't got enough. Well, the thing is, you've got to have enough and you've got to maintain yourself now because you don't know sort of when you are going to really need that reserve to draw on.
Right.
I mean, again, I'm not thinking about a sort of some future coming. I'm just saying a future events that could sort of, that are happening in other countries could come to us. We
That's
need to
true.
make that resolve now. And also sort of, if there's people that talk to people or pastors, maybe there ought to be this sort of kind of talk given to
Mhm.
Christians, because sometimes, when I've been to meetings where the church has gathered, sometimes it's all over the shop. One week it'll be a sermon on this and a sermon on that. It's not cohesive. It's not the story of redemption. It's not salvation. It's not sort of where we're supposed to be, like you just said there. Right down that creamy center. And I think that this is what Christians need to really glean from the studies that they have and the discussions that they have, that we're not sort of Sunday Christians.
Right.
We
It's
are,
every day,
you
every
might have to
moment.
lay your life again, like Revelation said, they did not even love their souls unto death.
Yeah.
Like Jesus said to me, will you follow me where I'm going? Oh yeah, you will follow me.
Hmm.
And this is it. It may be our lives, but by losing our life, you've acquired everything.
Yeah, you've gained it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Well,
wonderful.
let's
Wonderful
now,
study.
yes, let's move on. Let's finish this chapter out. If you would read verse 11 through the end, 11 through 13.
Right. Now, when Job's three friends heard of all the calamities that had overwhelmed him, they all came. Each one came from his home. Eliphaz from Teman, Bildad from Shuah, and Sophar from Naamah. They had agreed to meet together in order to come and offer sympathy and comfort. When they saw him from a distance, they couldn't recognize him. They wept aloud, tore their clothes, and threw dust over their heads towards heaven. Then they sat down with him on the ground. For 7 days and 7 nights, no one spoke a word to him because they saw how much he was suffering. At length, Job broke the silence and cursed the day of his birth.
Hold on a second. Where are you at? Did you go into Job 3 already?
No, that's the end of Job 2.
Oh, wow. Okay. So mine ends, Job chapter 2 in my version ends with it saying, for they saw that his suffering was very great, and that it ends. It doesn't say
Right.
anything about Job, but it makes sense because of this ancient tradition that pops up. So his friends hear about all of the calamity that's come upon him. That means that it has rippled throughout the land. They've heard of everything that's happened to their friend, and they decide together, they make an appointment together to go together to be with him. Now, you could look at them as the witnesses to the calamities, to maybe some legal reason. I think it's their friend, and they're there to go be with their friend. And what makes me happy when I read this part is that when they see him, they immediately go into lament.
Yeah.
And that it warms my heart because it's like there's nothing better sometimes than when you're in a lot of pain and somebody comes to share it with you, just to be with
It,
you.
and not only that, to cry with them, to weep with
Yes.
those who weep,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yes. Don't come with your, I don't need all your words. And that's the
No.
beauty of how this begins, because it's going to be a nightmare for Job going forward. But in this moment, it was traditional for them to not speak, but they sat with him as he was miserable, scraping himself with all this loss, and said not a word, said nothing, just sat with him. And grieved with him. And boy, there's something to be said about that. Just
I think it's
silence is golden, guys. Silence is
absolute.
golden sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's respecting that person's pain and letting them come to terms with it until they can speak and then declare what they are feeling, because all sorts, like you said, emotions must have been going through his he's not only got the loss emotionally, he's got physical pain, there's spiritual pain going on there, he's not
Hmm.
grasping it, he's not getting it, so many different aspects of these feelings are overwhelming this man. And what is there that you can say? Sometimes, like you say, that, saying nothing speaks reams. It speaks
Oh
so
boy.
loud.
Yes.
Just saying nothing, just
Hmm.
waiting patiently for your friend
Right.
to speak,
Hmm.
not running ahead, just saying nothing. I mean, in that, there is great, and even in that sort of saying nothing, knowing that they're sitting there, I think that brings you to a point where you want to speak maybe before the things that you really genuinely want to say, because if they'd spoken beforehand, it may have irritated him.
Right.
It may have got his
Yes.
back up, and that's, you don't really want to do that when someone's suffering so bad already. So you give him the dignity and the integrity to, yes, we'll sit here with you, and that says something about them, doesn't it? That they were. I mean, when I read that, I thought, I know it sounds a bit whatever, but where did they go to the toilet? Did they actually get up? Did Joe's wife bring them something to eat? There's nothing mentioned. It's literally just that they were in silence and sat there 7 days and 7 nights. Did they
That's
were
right.
they were they fasting?
Great question. A lot of times it does come with fasting. In
Mm.
Genesis chapter 50, after Jacob dies, um, it says that Joseph, his brothers, and his father's household, only their children, their flocks, and the herds which were left in the land of Goshen. So he's going up. When they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, they lamented there with a very great and grievous lamentation, and he made a mourning for his father 7 days. So
Mm-hmm.
this was a custom, evidently, to mourn for 7 days. Let me turn to 2 Samuel 31. After King Saul or sorry, First Samuel 31. After Saul died, the very last verse says, well, it says here, but when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Beth Shan, and they came to Jabesh and burned them there. And they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree in Jabesh and fasted for 7 days. So 7 days seems to be a thing that's going on in ancient culture where it's a time of mourning, an actual time of mourning.
Yeah, I just tried to. Wasn't there a time of mourning? Didn't they mourn for Moses for 40 days?
What was that
Was there
now?
that? Was there something there? Maybe I've got that wrong.
I know Moses, when he was on the mount, he fasted from both food and water
Mm.
for 40 days, but I don't know about, a time of mourning or anything.
Yeah, I think there was a time of mourning for Moses. Yeah, and after that time was up, then they all sort of. Yeah, I don't know. Whereabouts
Yeah,
does
and
Moses die? When he had finished speaking. Well, anyway, I'll look that up. I just thought that's what it said. But
yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
it's just again, was it really 7 days and 7 nights, or is it sort of, we get the number seven as perfection, don't we?
right. Hmm.
So I'm wondering whether it's sort of a number that, although it could be literal, is it sort of when the days were passed, the 7 days and 7 nights, meaning that the time of what was perfect for things to start sort of being spoken,
Hmm.
came. I mean, it probably is literal, but there could be a spiritual connotation there as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess the point that matters the most to me in this chapter 2 is that in all of this that's going on, Job never sins with his lips.
Uh,
He may have some things wrestling in his mind. He may be struggling. I'm sure he was, but he never let it out so that others would hear it come from him. He didn't defile himself by saying any of those things. And also, when you see somebody that is in pain, sometimes silence is the best thing that you can do.
Absolutely.
We don't
And
have this ritual of grieving for 7 days quietly in a person's home. We don't do that in America. A lot of times we go over and offer them some form of condolences and we say things, and a lot of times it feels shallow, my thoughts and prayers with you, even though that's
Yeah,
good. A lot of times that's all anybody knows what to say. Sometimes when you see somebody, I remember just going up to them and saying, I love you, and hugging them. I
that's
didn't
right.
have any more words for them.
No,
I didn't know what
sometimes it
to do
isn't.
or what to say. I was just with them. I was with
Yeah.
them.
And not only that, Rick, what can you say that they don't already know?
Hmm.
I mean, again, just a hug or just a squeeze of the hand and, maybe just a kiss on the cheek or just a kiss on the hand or something says everything. And because words, it goes deeper than words,
Yes.
just goes deeper than words. There's nothing left to say. It's like when it talks about the spirit groans because
Hmm.
there's no words to describe it. So all you can just do in your spirit is literally groan. I mean, when my mum died, I just felt this extreme, as if somebody had sort of like ripped my heart out and stamped on it, and it was this vacancy that it was awful.
Hmm.
And there's nothing you can say, and you just say, Lord, in your head, in your heart, in your spirit, Lord, I can't think of the words, but you know exactly what I'm trying to say because you can feel what I'm feeling.
Hmm.
You can
Right.
understand what I'm going through. And I'm sure that there are people out there that are grieving like yourself and your family. And even if you know where they are, we still are sad simply because we're human beings.
Hmm.
And that's what
That's
humans
right.
do. They feel for other people. Or they
Yes,
should.
you're
They
absolutely
should. I
right.
mean, Jesus led the way with Lazarus. We said that, didn't we?
Yep.
He didn't go there and say, right, cheer up, lads. I'm just about to get him out roll that stone away and he'll be tickety boo. But no, he didn't because he felt the great compassion and the pity of the whole situation that he probably thought, well, it shouldn't have got to this situation. And the great joy inside of him, knowing that he was going to turn it around.
Yeah.
Amazing,
Just the groaning inside and the weeping, the
yeah,
just the feeling, just the compassion
yeah.
of the Lord. I mean, my goodness. Yeah.
I mean, have you never? I mean, I know that when people have died that I've loved, sometimes you just grab your clothes and you just want to throw something. And I suppose that's why they grabbed their clothes and tore them, threw the dust in the air, because it not only showed the extent of their feeling or what had happened, but it was a way of release.
It was almost, I was reading about that dust throwing actually, and there's a couple of different ways that it can be interpreted. One is that from dust we were made and dust shall we return. So throwing the
Yeah,
dust up is saying, I'm in the dust, I'm back, I've been reduced to rubble, I'm in the dust. And others say that in the ancient Sumerian culture and the Akkadian cultures, throwing dust in the air was actually a response to the gods by as a protest throwing it in the air saying, I protest in the dust, for what you
mm.
do. We don't know, what's
No,
going on here. I mean,
no, I find that quite interesting because at the end of the day, you've got him scraping himself. Now
mm,
talks about being made of clay,
yeah,
and he's got a clay pot. Here
yeah,
we have them throwing dust in the air heavenwards. Man is made from dust. To dust,
yes,
you are under dust, you will return. And then I've got written here, it says sitting on the ground, communicating humility, and is a posture that's nearer to the earth than from the place
yeah,
from where man was taken.
that's right.
It's almost like you're sitting nearer your position, which
Hmm.
is you were made from the dust of the earth. And here they are throwing this earth that they were made for towards heaven. It's almost like we are empty of anything.
Yeah,
This is what we are going towards you. And now we're going to take up our position sitting on the earth because that's where we were taken from.
right.
It's
Yes,
recognizing this humility, isn't it? That I
yes,
understand where I am, and he's sitting there with this piece of clay, which is pot from the earth. This is earth made from the earth,
that's
and
right.
it's the whole thing is sort of really putting mankind in his place, and yet we think that we know such a lot.
Hmm.
Judging by what these three friends go on to say, the comfort doesn't quite sort of cut the mustard, does it?
No, and you can also, when it says ashes, you might think that this is post-sacrifice ashes that are on the ground, meaning I was worshiping you in my sacrificing, I'm throwing those up in the air saying, where are you? What's happening here? What's going on? So there's ways that you can look at it. But here's where we're in this today. When we get into, as you just heard Elaine read at the end of her complete Jewish Bible, the thought is that Job finally, after 7 days, will open his mouth and he will curse the day of his birth. And that's what we're going to get into next week.
And that's really interesting, that.
Yes, it is. And so for you guys who are watching this today, which is when it was released, it is Christmas Eve, December 24th, when you guys are watching this. So Merry Christmas to all of you. And I
Merry
hope that you
Christmas.
have a wonderful time with your family and relax and enjoy it, but also consider the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus
Absolutely.
Christ and the incarnation of God with us.
Absolutely.
That's what really matters. That's really what
without a
matters in
doubt,
our
the
story,
greatest gift
in
that
this
was ever
story.
given to mankind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Elaine, thank you for this study. It was great.
It was, Rick. It was beautiful. It just is so lovely to speak to someone backwards and forwards and just to draw out things that maybe you wouldn't draw out on your own. But, you know, this iron sharpens iron again. It's
It
that.
does.
And it's so nice that the people are sort of interacting, that are enjoying it, that have got things that they want to ask. And yeah, keep doing that, because we really feel that it is a family that's watching it, because it's not only about understanding what's going on. It's about sort of how we can know our Father even more, our Almighty God, our sovereign God. That's what it's really doing.
Yes, it is. And please do interact. I know some of you guys are commenting. Continue to comment, ask questions, give us your thoughts. Perhaps we missed something in a chapter and you'd like to illuminate us. We're studying this together. Iron sharpens iron. Bring things in and help us. We're trying to study this. We could use your help too. So jump in.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. And we just hope it goes far and wide. And we just hope that it starts something, maybe with people that are listening, that they would be able to bring, like the pastor, what's his name? Sorry.
Alan Thompson.
And there was another one last week, wasn't there?
Same one.
Same one. But maybe, again, it might be a good thing maybe to bring some of the points to his congregation, because it is good to go a bit deeper and to really put that question: where would you stand? Where would you stand?
Absolutely.
Where do you think some of our brothers are standing today?
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. All right. Well, God bless all of you. God bless you, Elaine. I hope you guys have a wonderful Merry Christmas, and we'll be back next week, Lord willing.
Absolutely. God bless you
all. God bless everybody.
Don't miss
Merry
the point.
Christmas.
Greatest gift.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Fire in the soul, faithful and strong, making broken hearts.